We know how tough inflation has been on families these last few years. And if you're noticing your budget tightening, well, we're going to share some advice on do's and don'ts in this situation. Jennifer Kwon is back to discuss it, and it all starts right now.
This is Debt Free in 30. Here's your host, Doug Hoyes.
Jennifer, welcome back. You were last on the podcast in November, episode number 430, when we talked about credit cards and credit repair. You remember that podcast?
I kind of do.
It's vague. Well, I'm going to put a link to it in the show notes so you can watch it again. So welcome back. This is your first appearance in 2023, and this is your first time actually in the studio here in Kitchener.
Right.
So this is a huge thrill for you, I know. Now, why are we having this discussion about money being tight?
Because, Doug, money is super tight.
Money is tight, exactly. Now, you have a kid who is now over a year old?
Yeah, 13 months.
13 months. Mm-hmm. And I believe when we actually recorded a podcast while you were pregnant, which would have been like, I don't know, do the math, year and a half or 2 years ago or whatever it was.
When I was hiding it.
When you were hiding it, exactly. How much does baby stuff cost? Like, what do you got to pay?
Too much, Doug. Money is tight even for me. For an example, I bought a crib mattress for $299 mid-pandemic. I checked the other day, it was $599.
My goodness.
I know, that's more than double.
Well, and a crib mattress can't be more than 3 feet long or something?
That's what I'm saying. And formula, don't even get me started with formula and diapers.
Yeah, well, diapers, they keep using them. That's the problem. Yeah. So... well, I would get the kid toilet trained as quick as you can.
I'm trying.
I gave you advice on that, with the Cheerios? Did we talk about that? Okay, we'll do that off air. But because you have a son, so go outside, bucket of water, Cheerios, give him something to aim at. But that's not the point of this. The point of this discussion.
Next one.
So Jennifer's going, move it along. Okay, so money is tight. I think we all understand that. Now, normally what we do on this show is we do the practical advice segment at the end. We're just going to start right with that because there's a lot to talk about here. So I'm going to throw at you some tight money scenarios, and I want you to give me your thoughts on how you advise people what we should do. Okay?
Let's do it.
Okay, here we go. So number one, I'm tight on cash this month. And so, of course, the logical thing to do is, well, I'm just going to put it on credit. And okay, we've all had to do that. I understand. Why is that something you want to avoid, if at all possible?
Well, Doug, it's because it's not just one time. Because if it is, then great. Yes, you can have an emergency and you should put it on credit if you don't have the money readily available. Okay. But the thing is, we fall into a vicious cycle. It's not just one time. You're going to need gas. You're going to need groceries for your kids. You're going to need, tire change, or your pet falls ill. So it's like the vicious cycle. It's not just one time. That's the problem.
So obviously you want to try to be ahead of it by having emergency savings and all the rest of it. But okay, easier said than done because cash is tight. I don't have enough money to be saving. So it really is a balancing act. And I guess that's why we always emphasize to all of our clients, well, do whatever you can to keep your expenses as low as possible. And if there's a way to earn some extra income, great.
Right.
Again, easier said than done.
It is.
I can't just work 2 jobs and make more money, but obviously that's an issue. So, okay, I'm tight on cash this month, putting it on credit. If you have to, okay, we understand it. You don't want to make it a habit. What about, and you see this all the time, I've got a credit card, I'm carrying a balance, but I can't afford to pay it off in full every month. So I'm making my minimum payments. Now, if I'm making my minimum payments, I'm good. The credit card company's fine with me.
They're happy.
They're happy. In fact, they're very happy.
You're paying a lot of interest.
You're paying a lot of interest, so they love it. But okay, are there some alternatives to that? What can you do instead of that? How do you try to avoid the minimum payment trap?
I mean, first, let's tackle the minimum payment question. Yes, they're happy, but how long can you keep that up? That's the biggest problem. A lot of my clients who come and see me, they're like, I've been doing this for 8 years. I'm like, so you're living paycheck to paycheck for 8 years, juggling from one credit to another to make sure you make the minimum payment. Now, that's a problem because, again, something's going to happen in life and throw you a curveball. And how are you going to pay for that?
Well, and if you are doing what you just described, I'm using a cash advance from here to pay there,
right,
my overall debt levels are going up.
Exactly. Although you're keeping the creditors quite happy for the moment, there will be a time where the minimum payments far exceed what you're able to now pay with your income. So we emphasize a lot as licensed insolvency trustees. We emphasize a lot on budgeting, our favorite word, income and expenses. We do have to look at income. And as you mentioned, we want to keep that high and the expenses low. Now, I know it's hard with expenses these days because grocery bills. I don't know about you, Doug, but my grocery bills went from $400 to $800 easily in the past year. So, and I'm not eating steak every day, So it is hard to maintain that, but budgeting is the key to everything. The numbers don't lie, right?
No, the numbers do not lie. And you're right. And I mean, I hate budgeting, as you know.
You're an accountant.
I am an accountant.
Yeah.
But I do agree. You got to know where it's coming and going. And obviously, you're very conscious of what you spend at the grocery store because you go to the grocery store and you're buying stuff, and it's like, gee, chicken used to be this much, and now it's this much.
Right.
And
I sound like my grandmother now.
I know. We all do. We all do. And I've never even met your grandmother, but we all sound like her. So, and obviously, you've got the added benefit of, you now got an extra person in the family.
And he can eat.
He can eat.
Yeah.
14 months ago, you were doing all the eating for him, and now he's not at stake yet, I assume.
Right, I'm not even benefiting.
Exactly, exactly. You don't get the benefit of all that extra eating, but yeah. So that's obviously a bit of a problem. So you and I both agree, pay as much as you possibly can against the credit card, not just the minimum payments.
Right.
Visa and MasterCard or the banks love it when you're paying the minimums because they're getting the maximum interest. But that means you're paying the maximum interest.
Right. But the moment you stop paying, they're going to be calling you left and right. Even one missed payment, they're going to be calling you, whoever's number you have on your credit report.
It just keeps on going. Okay, so the solution is get a consolidation loan then. I've got credit cards at 20% interest. If I can borrow at 10% interest, I'm saving interest.
Yeah.
Any problem with that?
Well, consolidation loan, first of all, is really hard to get with the bank. For example, if you're going to go get an unsecured line of credit with the bank, it's not like before. It's much more strict. They look at your income stream. They look at your debt level and your credit score and things like that. Oftentimes, if you're going to go get a consolidation loan or a line of credit, your credit score is not that great, or you already have really high debt ratio. So you're not a great candidate. Okay. But yeah, the consolidation loan will provide a lower interest, but not everyone qualifies.
And it's worse now than it was a year or two or three ago.
Yes.
Because it used to be, hey, interest rates are low. Everybody here, take money.
Exactly.
Now interest rates are higher and the banks are going, okay, we know we're heading into a recession. We got to cut back.
Exactly.
So now that you need the money, sorry, we're not going to do it.
Right.
We're not going to lend you the money. So you don't qualify is the big issue. But of course, getting a consolidation loan does not reduce your debt.
Yeah, I wanted to talk about even getting a consolidation loan won't help you because what normally 99% of the time what happens is you have credit cards that are available now at zero balance. Instead of cutting them up like a normal person would do, that a wise person would do, what we would do is rack up more debt and pay the consolidation loan. So all of a sudden we have multiple places that we owe money where our primary goal was to just consolidate and pay one lender. Well, that's not the case anymore. Now you have many.
That's right. I've got $10,000 owing on my credit cards. I managed to qualify for a $10,000 debt consolidation loan. Unless the bank either makes me cut up those credit cards or I do it myself and not just cut them up, but actually phone the bank and cancel them.
Right.
Well, now I've got access to $20,000 worth of debt.
Exactly. Does that help?
No, because now I can use the credit cards. And again, I understand emergencies happen. The car breaks down. I need stuff for my kid, whatever. But that's the big problem with a consolidation loan. And of course, then the bank realizes, oh, you've got all this debt. Well, if it's a line of credit they've given you, they can be jacking up the interest rate too.
Right.
Which, of course, is exactly what's happened over the last year. So, okay, I got one final scenario for you here. You and I did a podcast. I can't remember if this was pre-baby or post-baby because I can't remember. But we talked about buy now, pay later apps.
Right.
Remember that?
Right.
Put a link to that in the show notes too because I had never even heard of it before you raised the issue with me. So we ended up doing a podcast with it. The other category is these online loans, because everything's online. Once the pandemic started, well, nobody could go anywhere.
Right.
So now you can get the app on your phone. You can get a payday loan.
So easy.
Really easy. So what's the problem with that? That's easy. Don't have to go to a bank. Sounds good to me.
Right. It's too easy. Number one, that's a big problem. And also, I don't know about you, Doug, but all my clients don't have just one payday loan. They have several. Mm-hmm. They'll have like 5 or 6 on an average. And the biggest problem is the interest rate. So the interest rate, I don't know, like reading between the fine lines is no one's concern when money is a necessity and they really need it at that time. But usually it's anywhere from 43 to 48%, and they take it biweekly, and it's a huge chunk of change if you think about it. Yeah,
and you're right. So we're going to set up this loan, you pay biweekly. It's only going to be $100 every 2 weeks or whatever. Right. Okay, but what is the total cost? So the cheapest borrowing would be like a mortgage on your house. Maybe it's, 5-6%. It used to be 2 or 3%, but it's higher than that now. And then, a secured line of credit, a secured loan. Then you get a regular bank loan if you've got really good credit. Then you get into credit cards where it can be anywhere in the 12 to 20% range. Then you get the department store cards, could be 25% interest. But then you get to the rapid loans, as we now call them. And I'm not going to mention all the names of the companies.
There are too many.
There are too many, and you know all who they are. And very common to see a 45% interest rate. Very common. Right. And then, of course, the worst category would be payday loans, where in Ontario, they can charge $15 on every 100. So in your example where I'm paying it back every 2 weeks when I get paid, I can get 26 loans in a year, paying $15 on each 100. That's 390% interest in a year. So there's your problem right there that you get yourself into trouble. So if that is the situation you're in, at what point do you say, wait a minute, I got to be talking to a trustee here? And usually we do the commercial at the end, but since we're doing everything in a wicked, different fashion here. So when do you say to someone, you know what, it's probably time to talk to a licensed insolvency trustee? What are the flags? I feel
like we're like dentists, like I flee the dentist like the plague, right? But preventative measures, like if you feel like, wow, money is actually tight. Wow, I'm struggling every month with budgeting. My income is way lower than my expenses. It's time to come and see us. You don't have to wait till like, I may need a payday loan. Like you don't have to wait till you get to that point, because when you're already there, there's like, that's just a symptom of a bigger problem. So definitely come and see us. Like as soon as you notice like money is tight and I can't maintain these payments anymore.
Have you ever had someone come see you whose payments are all up to date?
Absolutely. I do. But the problem is, in 2-3 months, I won't be able to maintain these payments.
Because they're looking ahead.
Right.
Yeah. And why is it in 2 or 3 months I won't be able to make the payments? Is it they've calculated that, hey, I will have hit all my limits?
Right. So I do have clients who know how to budget and who love budgeting, but then they calculate and project forward and they're like, wow, my minimum payments are increasing. I can no longer juggle like from one credit card to a line of credit, vice versa. So yeah, that's when they come and see us.
Yep. And you don't have to wait until, well, my wages are being garnished. I mean, obviously, if that's happening, then yes, you definitely have to come and see us because, as you know, because you used to be a lawyer before you were a trustee. Are you still a lawyer? How does that work?
I'm technically a lawyer, but I can't practice.
Cannot practice. Yeah. Okay, good. Not that I have anything against lawyers, but there are only 3 ways to stop a garnishment. Pay it, do a proposal, or do a bankruptcy.
Right.
Don't think there's any other ways other than that.
No.
And so waiting until you're at that point, it's like, okay, well, we probably could have dealt with this a month ago, 6 months ago, whatever. So you talk to a licensed insolvency trustee. It's not obviously just cash is tight. Cash is tight for everybody, but it's cash is tight and I've got a bunch of debt. And I'm having trouble servicing that debt. That becomes the issue. And so when someone calls you and says, okay, I've projected forward and I can see that the interest rates are going up, my minimum payments are going up, and by 2 months from now, I'm not going to be able to even make my minimum payments, let alone deal with the debts.
Right.
So what are you going to say to them? What's your thought process? What's the discussion at that point?
Well, you mean at the office?
Yes.
Well, we have to look into doing a consumer proposal or a bankruptcy at that point. Mostly, Yeah, like a lot of people come and see me at that point to discuss what are the solutions, how can we stop? Because once you file a consumer proposal or bankruptcy, there is a stay of proceedings, which is a fancy legal term for saying interest and everything, actions against you legally speaking, stop, they halt. So at that point,
that's why we had the lawyer on, you see, because you knew the fancy legal word, the stay of proceedings. But you're exactly right that at some point you hit the wall. Cash is tight. I'm having trouble making my minimum payments, paying for my monthly expenses, but then I can't even make my minimum payments. Now I'm worried about legal action being taken. I've got to do something.
Right.
So I agree with you. Proactive is better. So, okay, enough for the commercial. Cash is tight. And again, you tell me if this is a common experience with your clients. I don't want to look at anything. So in the old days, and you're too young to remember this, but we used to get letters in the mail, which would be your statement.
I used to get those.
You did? Okay, yeah. So there you go. Now everything's, of course, electronic and online, everything. But so I used to have clients come in and they would have a stack of mail that they hadn't opened. Mm-hmm. And I guess collection letters still come in the mail. Because you know what? I just don't want to look at it. And we see the same thing with online too. Okay, I don't even want to look at my app. Mm-hmm. I don't want to look at that. I don't want to look at that. I'm just getting all anxious. So what is your advice to someone in that situation who doesn't want to look at anything, doesn't want to see anything, they're too anxious? What do you tell them?
Well, I could personally relate. Not that I've had serious debt problems, but I could have a spending spree when I was in my younger 20s and avoid the statement like the plague. Okay, I would be like, oh my gosh, I don't want to know because I don't want to face reality. But that only created problems for me because I would miss deadlines. I would miss what my minimum payments would be. So I would miss that budgeting. I would miscalculate how much I would owe the bank. So that's not good because that's going to ruin your credit score and such. So yeah, you do have to keep up to date with your statements. You do have to understand how much interest you're paying, how much principal is going down, or else you're going to go into that cyclical, vicious cycle that we were mentioning.
So you got to tackle it head on.
You do. You can't avoid it. You can avoid it for a couple of weeks, but no.
Well, it's your example with the dentist. Yeah, you can avoid that. And hey, during the pandemic, we didn't go to the dentist, and now we've all got teeth problems or whatever. Because for a day or two, no problem. For a year or two, a much bigger problem. So now, I am of the view that being tight on cash that's not the problem. That's a symptom of the problem. There is something underlying, and I mean, I guess we already kind of referred to it. It's math.
Right. Numbers don't lie.
Numbers don't lie. Your income is not high enough or your expenses are too high, one or the other. So So what do you do in that situation then? Is there any magic?
That's so tough. There is no magic solution, to be honest, because expenses are rising, but I don't see income rising at the same rate, which is often the problem that we see. Get a side hustle or getting a second job, and it's not easy. It's easier said than done, like you mentioned, Doug.
Well, and for most people, they've got other things to do. You've got a husband, you got a kid, both who are males.
I can't ignore them.
Exactly. You got to take care of them. I mean, I've met your husband. He's a very smart guy and everything, but let's face it.
Still needs care.
Exactly. I know. My wife has a husband as well. And so you can't be going out and working 3 jobs. Right. It's just not possible. Yeah. So you want to do as much as you can at your existing job or find a new one where you get paid more. Yeah. But again, it's not like you can just wave a wand and do that. Right. And on the expense side of it, well, okay, I'm going to cut back. Like you said, you're not eating steak every night.
Right. But there's only so much you can control in your expenses, like rent. You can't go negotiate all the time.
Well, and I'm guessing you can't reuse diaper. Well, I guess they do have reusable diapers, but even so, that still costs money, your laundry and all the rest of it. Mm-hmm. How much do diapers cost these days?
I would say 33 cents a diaper.
33 cents a diaper.
But you go through 10, sometimes 14.
The kids are going like crazy. And so and your kid would be in the big size diapers now as opposed to the newborn size. Right. So it can easily be, a few bucks a day.
Could be. And then formula's a few bucks a day too.
And then the kid probably outgrows his clothes every 14 minutes.
Right. And he needs to be entertained with toys.
Of course. Absolutely. Mm-hmm. Well, he listens to the podcast, I would assume. So that obviously helps him get to sleep every night. But so, yeah, I mean, I think you're right. It's tough. And that's one of the reasons we do this show is to explain to people, look, I don't have a magic solution here. And it's really easy for, a boomer, which I'm sort of not quite that old, but to say, well, in my day, I got a job, I got a house, I was able to, have a vacation every year, own 2 cars, whatever. Yeah, because 1950 is different than 2023.
A little bit. And
in fact, 1980 and 1990 and the year 2000 are different than 2023. Mm-hmm. Nobody's graduating from school, saving up a couple of $1,000 and buying a house.
No.
And the tax rate is a lot higher now than it was. So you're not keeping as much of your paycheck as your parents and your grandmother, who we've already talked about twice on the show, was able to do. So it is tough. And everybody's in the same boat. I guess maybe the richest guy in the world isn't, but everybody is in that same boat. So you just gotta do what you can. I think the key is what you said earlier. You got to have a plan. You got to whack it head on and see what you can do. Mm-hmm. Is there any other? Well, actually, I do have another question for you. What's the psychological impact of all this? So when I've got access to credit, I feel wealthier.
Right.
And when my budget is tight and I'm bumping up against my limit, I feel a lot poorer. Do you see that in people you're talking with?
Absolutely. So, yeah, I mean, you're actually poor if you have access to credit cards and you're maxing it out all the time, right? It's just the illusion credit cards like to give you wow, I have access to all these funds, but it's not your money.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah.
If it's your checking account, that's different. But if you're going for a credit card and just racking up debt,
it's not a real thing.
No.
Yeah, and you're just getting yourself in deeper trouble. Okay, right. So let's wrap up the practical advice segment, which we've been talking about for the whole show here. What advice in general do you have then? So the title of our show here is something, we don't come up with a title till after we record it, but it'll be something like debt mistakes to avoid when money is tight.
Right.
So what practical advice do you have for people? How do I avoid getting into debt problems given that cash is tight and for a lot of people it's the only option they got?
Well, I mean, there's a preventative measure, which is you need to budget. And budgeting's not fun, right? But I usually like to project for the whole year in December. Mm-hmm. And of course things change. Of course in March something's going to happen. Of course something's going to happen the next month after. But it'll give you an idea of, okay, rent doesn't change. Utilities don't change. I need this amount of money for my fixed costs. It helps you budget for the year. Now, what are the debt mistakes to avoid? Well, don't go jumping on online payday loans and easy access loans so quickly. Make sure you understand the implications and what you're signing on to. The 48% is double the amount you're borrowing initially. Can you actually keep up with that? Yes, it's a Band-Aid to your bleeding solution right now, but are we really healing the wound? Probably not. Okay, don't use your credit cards even more if you know you can't make the minimum payments. Just come and see us and we can probably help with a consumer proposal or bankruptcy, but we're pretty much the solution, Doug.
Yeah, I agree. And when you meet with you and you handle everybody who comes to see us in Mississauga, as well as people throughout the GTA, because we do a lot of stuff obviously on the phone and video and whatnot. Right. The first step is always to get a handle on everything.
Right.
So cash is tight. Yep, we know that.
Yes.
That's not a shock to any of us. Mm-hmm. Why is it tight? Is it because, my income has been reduced? I used to pick up overtime. Now I don't have any overtime. Is it more on the expense side that my expenses have just gone up faster than my income? Mm-hmm. So coming to see us to do a proposal isn't the solution if you're still going to be cash flow negative every month.
That's right.
And that's a tough conversation that we have to have with people.
It really is.
Because we're saying, well, you know what? Even if we eliminated your debt,
you're still you still have problems.
You still have problems.
But that's the minority of the clients that I've been seeing in Mississauga. Mostly they have a debt problem. And if we do eliminate the debts, it does free up a lot more cash in their budget. But you're right. There is a minority. I'm not going to put a percentage to it. But yeah, like, unfortunately, those people do have to seek other sources of income.
Yep, you're going to have more roommates. You're going to have to do whatever you do. But and again, I don't like budgeting, but I agree with your point that I got to take a piece of paper or a spreadsheet or an app on my phone or however I do it. How do you do it? Piece of paper, spreadsheet? I do it
Excel spreadsheet.
Okay, there you go. So that's how I would do it too, because I can't add. And I look at what are my fixed costs. Like you say, your rent is generally fixed for a year. Okay, it'll probably go up next year, but you know what it's going to be next month probably. Hydro, okay, well, hydro always goes up, but it's not going up by $100 a month. It's going up by, $5, $10, whatever it is. Your cell phone, your cable, your internet, whatever. Those are pretty locked in. Car insurance, again, it would be the same for the year. Now, of course, food, okay.
That could fluctuate.
That's fluctuating. I don't know what that's going to be. Some expenses go down, some expenses go up. I mean, hopefully your diaper expense will eventually go down.
Because we're potty training.
Exactly. Right? I already explained that, right? Did we have that? We'll play the clip later. But kid's going to need shoes because now the kid's walking around and doing this and all the rest of it. So I think projecting ahead is a good idea so you can see what's coming. And when you project ahead and you go, okay, I've got $200 or $300 a month to play with, but my minimum payments on my debts are $1,000. And for our clients, we issued our Joe Debtor study back in February. People can look it up, joedebtor.ca. Their debt servicing costs were a lot closer to $2,000 a month.
So there's a problem.
There's a problem. But you're right. You do a consumer proposal and now you're paying a few $100s a month, not $2,000, and that's what brings it back into balance. So, okay, so you're saying do whatever you can not to use credit to survive, and you're not alone.
Exactly, you're not alone, definitely not.
And that's pretty much it. Okay, excellent. Well, that's I think some very good practical advice, and I want to emphasize that as well. That you're not alone. A lot of people in the same boat, and there is no magic solution. I know on the internet, everyone's got a magic solution. There isn't. It comes down to math, cash in, cash out.
Does it balance?
Does it balance? And what can I do to make it so? And if the reason for a big shortfall is debt, well, okay, that's something we can work with you on. But in a lot of cases, we do say to people, you know what? You're going to have to make some changes. You work from home. You've got a car, you only use it once a week. Well, maybe that's something you got to get rid of so you can free up some cash. You're not paying car insurance. Okay, you rent a car when you need it. But I don't want to give up my car. I know.
Right.
But cash in, cash out.
Right. It sounds like when you go see a doctor and he's like, you've got a heart condition, you got to change your diet and you got to exercise, and you're like, I don't want to hear that. But he's got to give you practical advice to keep you healthy. Or giving you financial health.
That's it. Yeah. That's exactly right. And it's not always fun to hear.
No.
And often the doctor doesn't know exactly what changes to diet are necessary and how much exercise and all the rest of it. But okay, at least I know what I got to start working towards, and that's what I got to do. Excellent. Well, there you go. Money is tight for everyone, in case you didn't get the memo. But you got to do what you got to do. There are some strategies, and hopefully we've talked about that today. Jennifer Kwon, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
That was Jennifer Kwon, first time in the studio. Usually she appears by Zoom, but she has made the trek to our studio in Kitchener today. If you are in the Mississauga area, or frankly anywhere in the Toronto area, you can go to hoys.com, type in Jennifer Kwon, Kwon, or just hit the show me everybody, show me Mississauga. You're going to show up, and she would be happy to chat with you. Thank you very much. That is our show for today. I will put links in the show notes to what we've talked about. And if you're watching on YouTube, you know the routine. Hit the like button, the share button, the subscribe button, notification button. Did I hit all the buttons there so that you're notified every Saturday when we issue a new podcast? If you're listening on the audio version, which is how most people listen to it, again, subscribe. We're on all the podcasting apps, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, whatever one you use. A new show comes out every Saturday morning. And in fact, the audio show comes out at 6 a.m. on Saturday, but it doesn't go on YouTube till 8 a.m. So if when you're up, feeding your kid at 6 a.m., you don't have to listen to this show. You've already been on it, but all the rest of them are there. So there you go. That is our show for today. Until next week, thanks for listening. I'm Doug Hoyes. That was Debt Free in 30. 29 minutes, 40 seconds. Absolutely nailed it. Okay, beautiful.